Okay, class, there's a question that was brought up a while ago on how to solve it. So what we are working here are quadratics. First of all, we'll be looking for the minimum or maximum turning points or determine if it's a maximum or minimum. Next thing, axis of symmetry. Okay, so we'll determine that too. And so we solve it. Solve. Okay, remember certain quadratic equations can be factorized out, some of them cannot be factorized out. So this is the question. We have 2x squared minus 10x plus 9 equals 0. The giveaway here is to determine if it's a maximum or minimum turning point. So key things here. We know that this equation is in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Each one of these values here can be replaced by a letter, or they replace the letters. So in other words, in this case, the a is equals to 2, the b is equals to -10, and the c is equals to 9. For us to determine if it's a maximum or minimum turning point at this point is to look at this value here. Okay, if a is less than 0, then it is a maximum. If a is greater than 0, then it is a minimum. What does maximum mean? It simply means it will curve upwards. Minimum, it will curve downwards. Okay, next thing, axis of symmetry. So this is for maximum or minimum. So from here we can say that this equation has a minimum turning point. So this one here has a minimum turning point. Okay, axis of symmetry. Axis of symmetry is given by the equation, and we could go and find what's the equation, but I'm going to give you the equation directly so you know. All right, for you to determine the axis of symmetry, we'll be using an equation that says equals -b over 2a. Okay, now notice this a and b will come from this equation. All right, so the axis of symmetry, this value that we get here will be the x value where the axis of symmetry lies. So we substitute. For b, we know it is 10, so we put negative because it's negative 10, open 2 times a, which is 2, bracket. So this negative and negative will give us a positive 10, and 2 times 2 will give us 4. So this gives us 5 over 2, because 10 divided by 4 will give me 5 over 2, or this is equal to 2.5. This is the point where we have the axis of symmetry, which means that the curve in this case will be this way, and the 2.5 is right here. This is the 2.5 on the x-axis. So the x-axis is somewhere around there. All right, so that's for the axis of symmetry. So we have acquired the axis of symmetry equation, which is this one here. Very important, make sure to take that note. And maximum or minimum turning point now leaves us to find the solution of x and y. Where does it cross the x-axis? This equation, from the looks of it, can't be factorized. All right, so we have to complete the square, or we can simply use the quadratic equation. Let's complete the square. So we have 2x squared minus 10x plus 9 equals 0. Factorize out these two. We end up with 2 open bracket x squared minus 10 divided by 2x, and then we must say plus, and we half of this, so 10 over 2 times half, and we square that. Okay, close bracket. Then we put the 9, and since we added this value, we must subtract it also. So we put minus 2, this 2, open bracket, 10 over 2 times a half, everything squared. This is being squared here, close bracket equals 0. You will not need to be completing the square in this topic, okay? So just basic. So when we work this out, we end up with 2 open bracket x squared minus 5x. This will get a 4, right? So when we square this up, we get here 4. This becomes 5. So 5 here plus 5 over squaring here 4, close bracket. All right, this is being squared, right? Because remember we square this, that's 5 times 1 5, and then we square this one here 4 squared. Okay, now no, sorry, this is supposed to be 2 because this 2 was cancelled with the 10. Now we bring the 9 here and we say 2, and I guess this same working is the same working as this, so this gives us 5 over 2 squared. Okay, now here is where you need to be careful because it's going to get a little bit dirty with the work. We square this is a perfect square, so we put x minus 5 over 2 close bracket plus 9, and this gives us minus, when we work this out, we end up with 2 times 25 over 4 equals 0. This gives us 2 open bracket x minus, sorry, the square business up here, 5 over 2 close bracket squared plus 9, cancel out here, we end up with 25 over 2 equals 0. And so 2 open bracket x minus 5 over 2, okay, so we get that squared plus 9 minus 12 and a half equals 0. So we work this out, we end up with 2 open bracket x minus 5 over 2 close bracket squared. 9 minus 12 and a half will give us negative 3 and a half equals 0. We bring this up here so we can show everything together. So we have 2 open bracket x minus 5 over 2 close bracket squared. Bring the negative 3 and a half to the next side, that becomes 3 and a half, or it becomes 7 over 2. I'm going to leave it as a fraction because I need to be moving some other values till it. So this becomes now division x minus 5 over 2 close bracket, and that gives us 7 over this 2 will be multiplied on this other side, so that becomes 2 times 2, which is 4, because this becomes a fraction. So remember the square here, so we find the square root of both sides. X minus 5 over 2 equals the square root of 7 over 4, which is square root 7 over 2, but plus or minus. All right, and then x equals 5 over 2, bring this over, plus minus square root 7 over 2, which is equals to 5 plus square root 7 over 2. So we have the two solutions to be x could be 5 plus square root 7 over 2, or 5 minus square root 7 over 2. Okay, that is by completing the square, and so you have two solutions where x would cross the x-axis. If you are going to use the quadratic equation to solve for this, let's see what we would get. Okay, so we bring our quadratic equation here. We put that x is equals minus b plus minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a, and the equation was 2x squared minus 10x plus 9 equals 0, where a is equals to 2, b is equals to negative 10, and c is equals to 9. Substitute into this equation, we end up with x equals negative b, which is negative 10, plus minus square root b, negative 10 squared, minus 4, a, which is 2, times c, which is 9, over 2 times a, which is 2, equals negative and negative will give us a positive 10, or just put 10, plus minus square root Negative 10 squared is going to give us 100. 4 times 2 times 9, so 4 times 2 times 9 is going to give us 72 minus 72 over 4, which is equals 10 plus minus square root. So 100 take away 72 give us 28 over 4, which is also equal to 28 is actually 10 plus minus square root 7 times square root 4 over 4, because we can split the 28. This now gives me 10 plus minus square root of 4 will give me 2 square root 7 over 4. Factorize all the 2 from the top, we end up with 2. 5 plus minus square root 7 open bracket over 4. The 2 could cancel with the 2 and the 4 here, and so we end up with 5 plus minus square root 7 over 2, which is the same thing as the solution here, as you can see. So that is how you factorize out this equation. Remember, if the a is greater than 0, there will be a maximum turning point. If a is less than 0, there is a minimum turning point. The axis of symmetry is given by this equation. Then we can factorize out the equation. Because this cannot be factorized out, so we complete the square to get it solved. All right.